This video is proudly brought to you by Hovertech. Hovertech. Just a button away.
In this video tutorial, I'll be discussing how to use SP Flash tool. Now for it to use SP Flash tool, you of course need your SP Flash tool. I'll be using version 3 and 5. Now they are basically the same thing, but some people tend to get confused using them, and they also have some distinct differences. So I'll be using both versions, so it's clear for whichever one you are going to be using. You'd also need your VCOM drivers, which is your USB VCOM driver. Now you might have noticed that when trying to flash using SP Flash tool, the SP Flash tool might just remain at 0%, no flashing, nothing happening. That's because you don't have the VCOM drivers. Now there's already a video on that. I already created a video on that, so you can check the video tutorial, but just to make it clearer for everybody, I'll be going through the process of installing the VCOM drivers all over again in this tutorial. So you get it from start to finish. Now you do also need VCOM drivers, so just check the description of this tutorial. You should get the download link, or you go to our website, search for how to use SP Flash tool. You should find the written version of this video tutorial, and you can get the links to all this software you'll be needing. And of course you need the files you'll be flashing, which is my stock backup. In this case I'm using an old OS Tecno M3. Now I also have my Tecno M3 here with me, and I've rigged this phone just for the purpose of this tutorial. So I'll be flashing the files to this my Tecno M3 here, and I have my USB cord right here. So these are the things you would basically need for this tutorial. Now I'll briefly touch the content of the stock backup. Now this, as you see here, is not the complete backup. This is just a files to flash. This is just a collection of the essential files you'll be needing for SP Flash tool. Now most people tend to think all you need for SP Flash is your scatter file. The scatter file here is just like a map. It's a key. It's what tells SP Flash tool the partition table of your phone and tells you where to flash what file. It's what tells SP Flash tool the partition table of your phone and tells you where to flash what file. The partition table of your phone and tells you where to flash what file. And also you'd have to have the file you wish to flash. In the case you need to flash just one file, you need your scatter file and just that one file. In the case you need to flash many files, this scatter file and all the files you need. So basically your scatter file is just like the key to flash, and you need other files. This scatter file will be helping you to flash. So since we have all this, I will proceed. Now the first thing you want to do, of course, as I promised you, I will take you through the installation of your VCOM driver. I already have my VCOM driver extracted. Alright, is my USB VCOM driver here. Alright, now if you look here, all I have is Windows 7 and I'm using a Windows 8 PC. But since Windows 7 and Windows 8 are very close in driver usage or the drivers they need, I can safely install my Windows 7 drivers on my Windows 8. So we have the drivers ready. So now the first thing you want to do before you talk about using SP Flash tool at all is to install the drivers. Now for SP Flash tool, you don't need an internet connection, so don't worry about internet connection. Everything can be done offline. So installing the drivers, the first thing you want to do is open device manager. So I will search for device manager here. Alright, here's my device manager. Now what we are basically going to be doing here is we are going to be manually installing this VCOM driver. There's a automatic method of installing it where you use an installer, but we are going to be manually installing it just in case you don't have access to the automatic installer. So the first thing you want to do here is just click anything, just click any item on the list, any item at all of the list. So once you click an item, you go to action, then you go to scan for add legacy hardware. Click on add legacy hardware. Then from here a wizard will pop up. Next, from here you click next. Now before you go proceed at this point, lest I forget, if you're using a Windows 8 PC, it's very important to disable driver signature verification. Now there's a video on that. I created a video on that. You can also check our website for how to disable Windows driver signature verification, because if you don't disable that, you'll not be able to install an unsigned driver. and this driver I'm trying to install is unsigned. It doesn't mean it's not going to work, it doesn't mean it's dangerous or something, it's just not signed. Now, you understand? So basically Windows 8 just believes that any unsigned driver must be unsafe, so it doesn't allow you to go ahead to install that. So you need to first disable signature verification if you're using Windows 8 before you proceed with this. Check my list of previously uploaded tutorials or video tutorials, or you go to our website for how to disable signature verification on your Windows 8. So from here you click install the hardware that I manually select from a list, then next. You just click next here. Now at this point you click have disk. Now here I'm going to choose the driver I wish to install. So I just go straight to my HoverTech folder. My VCOM drivers, USB VCOM, don't forget. Windows 7. Since I don't have Windows 8, Windows 8 and 7 are closed as I mentioned, so I can use Windows 7. Now my PC is a 64-bit PC, so I just select 64-bit. Now for those who don't know how to check if theirs is 32 or 64-bit, quickly just go to my computer, right click on it, click on properties, and you see your PC. Mine is this 64-bit system type, 64-bit. Here it is. Alright, so that's how you just check it. Right click on my computer, properties, and that is it. Alright, let's proceed with the installation of driver. So from here I've loaded the driver I wish to select. Let me do that again just in case you've forgotten. Go straight to where the folder is. You select that for your PC. Mine is 64-bit. If yours is 32-bit, select this instead. So mine is 64-bit. I select and then open and then OK. Now this is the one that I mentioned. This driver is not digitally signed. But this is nothing to worry about. You just have to proceed and then you click next and next. So we are installing this. Now this is finished. Now if after the installation, like assuming you disable the signature verification and you're able to get to this stage, now you get this, this device cannot start code 10. Most people tend to panic at this point. This is really nothing to panic about. Now the reason why you're getting this code 10 basically is because you installed an unsigned driver. Now when you install an unsigned driver in Windows 8, Windows 8 tends to assume it might not work. Now notice notice my language, I said it might not work, doesn't mean it will not work. It might not work because it's unsigned. So the only reason why you're getting this error is because the driver you installed is unsigned, and that doesn't mean it's not going to work. And I can guarantee you that it is most likely going to work as far as you install the correct drivers, which it is in this case. So despite the fact that I'm getting my device cannot start code 10 error, it's nothing to worry about. It's just because the driver is unsigned. So I just click finish. So my driver is installed. Now to cross check if my driver is installed, see under my device manager, I scroll down and I see my MediaTek USB VCOM port and my MediaTek preloader USB VCOM. So yes, I have it installed. Now this yellow triangle is just related to the code 10 error I earlier mentioned. It's nothing to worry about. It's just because it's unsigned. That is all it is. This is for Spectrum here, but we are basically focusing on the MTK, which are these here. So my VCOM drivers are installed and I am good to go. Now straight to SP Flash 2. Now I'll be using SP Flash 2 version 3 first. So I open the version 3 folder. Now what you want to do to use this is you right click on SP Flash 2 and run as administrator. Then the reason why I'm running as admin, click yes to confirm. Now the reason why I'm running as admin is just to avoid permission issues when using SP Flash 2. Sometimes if you're not running as admin, you might not be able to run certain files or use certain system resources, things like that basically. But you should be able to use it in normal mode if you're not the admin. But if you can run as admin, it's just better run as admin. So now in SP Flash 2, there is basically no setting you need to run. What you just need to do is to load your scatter file. Now I'm using version 3 first. I will repeat the same procedure for version 5. So I click on scatter loading. Now in this window that pops up, what you want to do is to go to where you have your files which you want to flash. Now remember, mine is the stock backup for this, so I select my scatter file here and I click open. Now I'm getting error initializing scatter file failed. Please check the name of the scatter file which you load is legal. Now the reason why I'm getting this error is because the version of SP Flash tool I'm using is too low for the kind of backup I have. You understand? So for me to be able to use SP Flash tool, I need to use version 5. That's what this is telling me. So basically I cannot use version 3 to flash this phone which I'm using. I have to move to version 5, but I still want to show you what version 3 is going to look like. So let me just look for another file which version 3 should be able to at least list for you. Even if you are not flashing, I need you to at least see a list. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Let's see Techno D3 should be able to at least have. Okay, all right, so this is basically what version 3 is going to look like. That is, if it's going to be compatible with your phone, this is what version 3 looks like. So it's going to be the same thing as us using version 5. Just take note of where the following things are: format, firmware upgrade, download. These are just the basic things you just need to take note of. I'll explain these things in version 5, but it's basically the same thing. There's also read back for you to back up your phone, but that is beyond the scope of this. There's a video on how to back up a working phone using SP Flash tool. You can check out video tutorial on our website. Now, but basically this is what your version 3 is going to look like. Now you would see this part in red, your preloader in red, and your DSP_BL in red. Now the reason why these two are in red is just like a warning. It's more like telling you, do not flash these files unless you really need to, or unless you're really sure of what you are doing. As I earlier mentioned, preloader.bin and DSP_BL are basically your preloader files. They help your phone to even show a sign of life. So if you really do not need to flash these files, do not flash them. If your phone is not totally dead, do not flash them. But if your phone has a sign of life, ignore this. If your phone is totally dead, then you can go ahead to flash them. That it has a sign of life. But if it has a sign of life, it can respond to power button, or it can just show a sign of life at least. Do not flash preloader.bin unless you flash a wrong one mistakenly or something. But just do not flash this at will. So you see that the rest are ticked. We have U-boot ticked, boot ticked, recovery ticked, and the rest. Now you see that some are ticked and some are not ticked. Like this is not ticked. Now the reason why some will be ticked and some will not be ticked is because they are not present in that particular stock backup which you have. So what that basically means that if you load a scatter file from a folder containing your stock ROM, and a particular file is not there in that same directory where the scatter file is, it will not appear here. When I load this scatter file here, the only files it's going to see are all these files here. Any file that is outside this folder, this scatter file will not see it in SP Flash tool. So that explains why cache is not ticked, because if cache was in the same folder as the scatter file was, it will also be ticked as all these others are ticked. But because it's not ticked, that means it's not present there. But of course, there's a way for you to manually load a file. In a case where maybe it's not appearing here for one reason or the other, maybe because it's a different location or somewhere it's just not loading, there's a way you can manually load a file. Now, for you to manually load a file, I will assume, let's say my boot.img was not ticked, for example. My boot.img wasn't ticked. I'm using D3 in this case. For me to manually load my boot.img, all I have to do is just tick boot.img. That's assuming it wasn't ticked when I loaded the scatter file. All you have to do is just tick the item that was not automatically loaded. Then you double click it. Now I need to make you see something. Now if you look at cache here now, you see that cache is not ticked. It has this front part is empty. that shows you that there is no file linked to your cache. But because boot has a file linked to it, you see this here. So I'm going to assume that boot.img is also empty, as cache. So for you to manually load it, you tick the item that was not automatically loaded, then you double click this name. For version 3, that is how you manually load.